So you know how we are, us journalists. I've set you up, so now I got to punch you.
Here we go.
You were the best prosecutor I'd ever seen in a courtroom. So what went wrong in the Simpson trial?
We're going to be here a long time.
They're ready.
So, you know, right from in the very, very beginning of the case, there was so much evidence. There was a blood trail, before he even came back from Chicago, there was a blood trail leading from Bundy into his bedroom at Rockingham. There was the glove that matched the Bundy glove at Rockingham.
With blood on it, right?
With blood on it, yes. There were bloody shoe prints in the Bronco, blood on the door handle of the Bronco. Shoe prints, about a size, his size, I can't remember now, 12?
11, Bruno Molly's.
Bruno Molly's. And blood drops to the left.
Notes, yeah.
You know, yeah. Blood drops to the left of the Bruno Molly's. And then he shows up with a cut on his left hand. I mean, good God. But within 5 days of getting the case, a friend of mine who was working in Compton, which is a very African-American heavy community, came to me and said, "This is a loser. You're going to lose this case. They don't like this case. No one wants to believe it. I'm telling you, you're toast." And so I gotta say, we knew we were always up against it in downtown Los Angeles. This was a very common thing. I'd been trying cases down for 10 years in downtown LA, and race was always an issue. There was a profound mistrust among the African American community of the law enforcement, and every time we had a black defendant, we were going to be facing, we did face, what we call the race card, which I don't like it because it's a pejorative, and it kind of is dismissive of the fact that there's a really good reason for the mistrust that they had. But we were always faced with the argument, look, you know, I know you're right, there are bad cops, but this time, not this time, was kind of a standard thing that we'd have to say. So with Simpson, it was going to be an issue, and we knew that. But how big an issue was really the question, because after all, this was not somebody who was underprivileged. This was somebody who was more than a member of the high society, white society, certainly not someone who had ever been mistreated by the police. In fact, they loved him. They were his adoring fans. So how hard could they play that card? That I didn't know until the story came out about Furman planting the glove. And we were seeing that they were believing it. It was being bought, and it was being believed all over town, even though it was very, very plain. Furman had no opportunity to do it. He wasn't there. A million cops were on the scene before he was and saw only one glove, so there was nothing for him to move. And last of all, logically speaking, he's going to move a glove before he knows that Simpson has an airtight alibi, or somebody else comes in and confesses, or somebody else is, you know, an eyewitness knows who did it. That would be crazy. And Furman didn't have it in for him. He let him go. When Nicole made the call and Simpson had bashed in the windshield of her car while she was sitting in the driver's seat, Furman was the one who responded to the call and cut him loose. So, you know, how it was going to sell, why it was selling, it was very clear that it did sell. It didn't matter.
It's important for those of us who weren't in Los Angeles at the time that this is also happening in the context of the Rodney King beating.
Everything got worse.
So talk a little bit about the context.
Yeah. So the Rodney King case was 4 or 5 police officers who beat Rodney King. I'm sure you know about that. And they caught it on videotape. And the beating was horrifying, horrifying to watch. And our office prosecuted the cops. But it was an all-white jury in the bedroom community of Simi Valley, where a lot of police officers lived. And they famously acquitted all of the officers.
Even though there was a videotape.
On video, you know, really that was the most stunning thing. It was a stunning defeat, and it sparked riots, the most violent riots of that century. The city was literally burning. I remember I was working downtown and they were arresting people in droves, and we were doing overtime to process the cases. So in the wake of that, so it was just 2 years later when we were trying the Simpson case.
So it was proof in a lot of people's minds, both black and white, that you couldn't, black people couldn't get a fair trial, couldn't get a fair shake with the cops.
Exactly.